6 years ago, I was running marketing for a vodka brand, and I met this guy who was building an automated marketing platform for restaurants called Targetable. We've stayed connected over the years, and I've kept watching because every time Andrew Nash puts his name behind something, it's moved. He's exited to Apple, eBay, Targetable exited to Chowly recently. And since then, he's moved to Australia to retire, or so he thought, because then AI happened and it's drawn him back in. First of all, we're talking about what he's working on. We're talking about what it actually means to build on reputation and what it looks like when your name is the track record and what Andrew looks for when he bets on founders. Because here's what's hit me in this conversation. The thing that's made Andrew extremely successful over the past 40 years and 25 plus companies isn't the technology, it's the trust he's built. This is return on reputation. Let's get into it.
Andrew, welcome to Return on Reputation. I'm thrilled to have you on the show. Thank you so much for being here, making the time, coming all the way from Australia. So you're my first international guest.
Oh, wonderful to be broadcasting from down under and being awake. All good.
Yeah, it's weird. I'm sending you the notes yesterday, and if you notice in my email, I didn't know what to say. I was like, good morning, or it was, and just you in a few days. It's fine.
I can tell you that Thursday is pretty good so far. Okay.
Yeah, I feel like I'm talking to someone in the future.
Yeah.
Very cool how that works.
We're on this side of the date line. We're having fun.
All right. So we met. I just wanted to bring the story back. I'm thrilled to have you here because we met 6 years ago. I was running marketing at Keel Vodka, and you were in the thick of building Targetable, one of probably many ventures you were already involved in. And as we met, it's been a pleasure to stay in touch since. And then the more I've watched your career, I've been in awe. It's just I don't know how you can do that much. And so I want to get into that. But as we were building Return on Reputation, I realized this conversation was really tailor-made for the show. So just to set the scene before, for everyone listening and to get into it today. So people who don't know you yet, give me your pitch, the 60-second version, not LinkedIn maybe, but who is Andrew?
Please keep off the LinkedIn one. I position myself as, an accountant and a computer scientist who was lucky enough 42 years ago to see what was actually coming together as business and technology were grappling with what was coming. And I summarize as saying I've had kind of the Forrest Gump walk through life where, I worked with all these incredible people and incredible technologies. I am a tech entrepreneur. I did my first startup 38 years ago that I sold 36 years ago. I've had as many wins as I've had losses. I've seen many of the cycles. I've been lucky enough. I'm a dual Australian-American citizen. Worked in the US for 28 years, which is where we connected.
Yeah.
And, by the way, Justin's a great client, by the way. It was wonderful. But yeah, look, tech entrepreneur. We'll cover some of the things that we've worked on, I'm guessing, in the podcast here.
Yeah.
But had a wonderful run, worked all around the world, worked across a lot of technology, and been through a lot of phases and starting to see that, it's accelerating. It's getting a lot quicker, and it's time to sort of double down and run harder now. It's fun.
And I'm glad you said that because we talked about it pre-show and how you were, you were ready to kind of retire, and now you're even more fired up than ever before. It seems like. What is it that you're most fired up about today?
So I think one of the things that I've watched the most is what I would call just the velocity and the rate of change. I think a truism is that the rate of change is never as slow today as it's ever going to be. It's just every single day it goes up. And, at the moment, I think everybody's feeling it logarithmically. And when there's logarithmic and, massive sea change and, seismic change, if I could say it that way, that creates opportunity. Now, whether that's, in the workplace, whether it's technology, whether it's embracing new human relationship ideas that we got to figure out with things like AI and, do I even grapple with things like emotional AI? These are just new issues that we're all dealing with over and above everything that's been changing on a daily basis as well. So, the essence of leaning in and seeing something's changing, that actually really excites me because that means there's opportunity, innovation, and we can get more innovation to market quicker in all aspects of life.
Yeah. And there's so much opportunity. A lot of people are afraid of AI and that their jobs will be taken. And I view it as, I feel like we're back in, the early internet days where like web had just come out and it's like, there's so much opportunity. I was too young to take advantage of it then, but I'm very excited about that now. And so we'll get into that later, but
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
and you've got, you're in it. You've got Kemu is probably,
Yep.
I want to talk about that a lot. You've got Austral Impact and then Big Bets and Bad Calls podcast, a part-time professorship at the University of Melbourne, which I don't know how you do it. Again, it's amazing. True honor to have you here. It's all running simultaneously. How do you think about what kind of gets your energy first and foremost, and what's kind of the through line connecting everything right now?
Yeah, actually, I think that's a great framing question. To sort of step it back a little, I had a great dinner last night, and someone framed it up and said that, our career or our, I think what we call our career now is even changing as well. And that's a whole separate topic.
Yeah, we talked about that.
But then essentially we go through the learn, earn, and return. If you're really doing it properly, as I sort of coach a lot of folks and say, that first piece of what you do, go down every rabbit hole, learn everything, take every opportunity, be humble, be curious, really go there. The next piece is, okay, now I've built some capability. I'm earning some money. I'm setting myself, my family up for life. And then the return phase. So a lot of what I frame now is the return. I've had a wonderful run. I went into the return phase probably 10 or 15 years ago and said, I had a great run, but now what are the things that we can do to actually scale building ecosystems? So the common themes for everything I do, and this is when I came back to Australia and had my, epiphany moment, was I noticed this huge difference between Australia and the US. Incredible innovation over here, incredible research, incredible, big companies that have been built over here. We hear the lots, Atlassian and Canva, but I was also sort of, but there's also these incredible Aussies who went to the US and built companies over there as well. Rob Skillington and his partner Martin Mao, who built Chronosphere and just sold that to Palo Alto Networks.
Okay.
It's a unicorn and a multi-billion-dollar exit.
Wow.
And they did that in about 7 years or so. So
wow.
For me, the big gap between the markets was that clearly the depth of the ecosystem to the United States versus Australia, but not necessarily the gap in the innovation. And it's like, so I see the unfair advantage in one market versus the other. So if we can somehow figure out how we can change the ecosystem, level the playing field, find different ways of connecting Australian and New Zealand, I have to say Australia and New Zealand in this region, as well, innovations to the rest of the world. That was really, so the theming of most of everything I'm doing now is in actually building and enabling an ecosystem, and all of the work that I do, whether it's the venture work I do as a venture partner in venture capital firms, whether it's the work that I do in the ecosystem to actually connect and enable and empower the ecosystem, which is really the idea between Austral Impact. Let's get a lot of the returning Australians, New Zealanders and others who have actually worked all over the world but can come back here and then can share that networking and connection and experience. All the way through Big Bets and Bad Calls, when I got down here, I felt that, we weren't doing enough storytelling of the incredible innovators around the globe. And, they're in New York, they're in London, they're everywhere else, and they've got, in some cases, incredible household names. I mean, if you're in the US and Bluestone Lane Coffee, which is fabulous. So it's Nick Stone, who's from Melbourne here, and has gone over and built an incredible brand over there. So one of the things we wanted to do is actually, the underlying thing that I'm looking to do is to sort of really help create that platform and celebrate the Australian innovation, the Australian brands, the Australians all over the world, but using the podcast as a platform, Austral Impact as creating a virtual ecosystem platform to connect everybody, to connect to the ecosystem, to accelerate more innovation. And there's also nothing like starting up your own companies and testing the thesis on the fly as well. And I think, Justin, if you know me, I've always got my fingers in at least 3 or 4 that I admit to, and 1 or 2 that I will not admit to later because we crashed and burned and we didn't get it to work. So I think the premise behind Big Bets and Bad Calls, I think in many respects, was to say there's an element of humanity in entrepreneurship and startups, and I think a lot of it's missed. It's the headlines of so-and-so raised 100 million, so-and-so raised this, so-and-so had this exit, and it's like, wow. I don't feel like I ever had that narrative for the past 42 years. I felt like I got up in the morning, I'm like, oh my God, all right, how are we gonna get this deal over the wire? How are we gonna put this partnership in place? The product is late, we need to get it to go. So there's this asymmetrical conversation about what's going on. So the punchline to all of this is I decided to, and you've known me for a while, I try to be in the background and just kind of do what I do. And I finally said, nope, let's flip it around the other way and sort of let's do the build out loud thing. So now I've decided, okay, I'm 63 years old now. Whatever I do now, we're going to do it out loud. We're going to show people what we're doing. We're going to own the problems, the mistakes, create the conversation. Because I saw the impact of, I've had the benefit of working with probably about 200 or 300 startup companies across the planet and in the journey so far. And it's accelerating lately because I work with incubators and accelerators and university systems. And we spend time looking at incredible ideas. And, if you're having a moment of just pure honesty, they're not all going to make it.
Of course, yeah. It's a numbers game.
It is a numbers game, but you can alter the probabilities, you can alter the odds. And, when I sort of summarize entrepreneurship and what you do, it's like, well, should I get into entrepreneurship? I'm like, well, it's a little bit like, imagine if you were going into a profession where 90+% of everything doesn't make it. And even if you do make it, 3 other competitors come in and you just spent 12 years of your life and you did salary sacrifice and you did all these other things because you were looking for that. I'm doing this because, I've got that big opportunity. I'd like to have that big payday. And, if I said to you, hey, Justin, I got this great industry and career that you can go after, but you've only got a 2% chance of success.
Yeah.
And, it's probably going to, bit of a tough journey for you and your family and everybody else, because this is the big forgotten factor when you go on the entrepreneurship journey. It's just not the entrepreneur. It's everybody and the crew and the cheerleaders,
100%,
the friends and family who are giving you that early stage investment. It's it's a very human journey, and I think in many respects sometimes the media dehumanizes the journey and celebrates so and so raised $200 million. Okay, I think it's great and it's wonderful, but if you look backwards, there's been tens of billions blown up on ideas that didn't make it, but some of the stuff that actually came through then became the part of something else or similar. So I'm a big proponent that it's a wonderful opportunity. It's a wonderful journey, but boy,
it's a hard one.
Put your flak jacket on, become resilient, become humble, and just wake up every day and run hard at it. And I think it's one of those things you kind of have to do. You don't describe, you just do it. And you're like, oh. And I joke with a lot of folks. I actually did my first burner startup. It was. And what I meant, I started my career. You asked me earlier, how do I do everything that I do? And I think it was because I was lucky enough to start straight out of university here. We call it uni. It was straight out of college, if I'm being my American self. And I worked with Arthur Anderson way back when, and I was a consultant on day one. And a consultant meant you actually had to think about a client in the morning and then a client in the afternoon, and you had to context switch.
Yeah.
So many of the folks who've actually learned to context switch for a long time, it's just a normal thing that you do. I didn't go to one office all day, every day for 5 years to learn my craft. And I think that actually really helped. But coming back to the burner question I kind of felt like a fraud. Like, why am I giving advice and charging someone for advice when I hadn't actually ever built a business? So I felt so passionately about it the first time I did my first startup. And, was it a screaming success? No. Did we have a couple of nights where we're short on payroll and I'll call up mum and dad and say, hey, can Sonia and I come around for dinner? Because, it's not that we don't have food in the fridge, but, payroll's a priority, right?
Yeah.
And for me, I had so much joy after I did that because I get it. And I think any entrepreneur, and we don't have to sort of romanticize the tech, the this, the whatever. Anybody who's got the courage to start a business and to go and do it and take a shot at it, everybody should take a shot at that if you can. If it's in you, take a shot at it. You can see it, and then you'll have real empathy for entrepreneurs and other business people who are actually going down that journey and down that path. So I think I was very, very lucky that I took a shot at it because, first of all, I had an amazing wife who was a stockbroker and economist and had an amazing job. So we had okay, you cover those things. I'll roll the dice on this side. And I think I tell you the story because there's any entrepreneur, if they're really being honest, there's a group of people who really helped them and got behind them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're saying anything otherwise, then it's a big lie. There's no, I don't think there's any solo acts, and maybe that's changing with AI. And I don't know.
Yeah.
A lot of people like Gary Vaynerchuk is saying he just published a piece saying, we're in the solo empire stage of the world because of AI. And I'm not sure that's, but
for anybody who, in Gary's case, like Gary, I love what Gary's done and what Gary's achieved.
Oh, yeah.
I think he's a classic example who took, just just an incredible position around, a family wine store, if I could say it that way. And I don't want to minimize, what Gary's created. He's incredible, and he built an incredible brand, and it was perfect timing, and it was absolutely one of my favorite podcasts, and the Swishy Swish, and
he's incredible. I've been following forever.
Absolutely incredible, and he is a legend. He's an absolute legend.
Yes,
but I don't think we then translate that into everybody should have AI and become a legend. I think you've got to sort of, AI needs to empower who you are, and I think at the end of the day, what's your purpose? What's your vision? What are you about? And there's AI for whatever you want to be and whatever you want to create.
Yeah.
And I don't think AI is front row center. I think, who are you? What do you stand for? What do you want to do? That's more important. Now, can the tooling help you? Absolutely. And by the way, as I say to most folks, I'm like very, very bullish, very positive on AI. And I focus more on things like, drug discovery or using AI patterns in a lot of places in the world, even as 40 or 50 years ago, we're doing clinical trials, but mostly on males in a single demographic. Why?
Yeah.
Right. So, what about female? If they're going through menopause, I mean, shouldn't that be absolutely in the clinical trial?
100, yeah.
And part of it was, this stuff's costly. Well, now we can use AI, we can use synthetic testing, we can use all sorts of other, what AI opens up to us is not, what I call the ChatGPT experience of I can get some stuff done quickly and go to the beach. That's cool. It's, AI is now enabling some incredible science, incredible discovery. We are now discovering materials or, getting to new molecules quicker. These are the conversations, but the challenge, as you know, in media and reputation in particular, AI can turbocharge everything, but it can also break it in real time.
Yes. Absolutely.
Be as careful with this as I remember my first lecture 40 years ago when I was at a big professional services firm. They would tell you, whatever you do today and whatever you write down, just be careful. It may be on the front page of the newspaper tomorrow. That's seconds
very true.
Now. That's seconds, and it's in real time, and it's at scale now. So AI, I'm, as I say, very bullish on AI, but used responsibly, used humanly, used in a way that is, I call it explainable or visible. Make sure that you can do something and say, here's what I did, and here's how we did it, and here's what the benefits are, and here's what the likely hallucinations are, because it's still happening.
Yeah. And I think ChatGPT just came out out saying that they'll never be able to get rid of the hallucinations. That was the headline, just came out today. So I haven't read it yet. There's so much I could dive in on what you just said there.
Yeah.
From the entrepreneurship, such a risk. I started a company when I was 22. Like I went to the traditional route, economics and finance, went into banking, said, what am I doing? U-turn out of there, started a company. And I look back on those 10 years of starting that company, and it was a huge risk. I mean, the first 2 years, we paid ourselves $500 every 2 weeks, lived on
Right.
pasta and bread. And it was like,
Yep.
But I was 22. It didn't matter. But there's this power in being naive, and you don't know what you don't know. And you don't know the risk that you're really taking. And if I didn't exit, it would have been really hard, but there were really bad valleys where we had to get through, like good times and bad. But I mean, there were nights where you just said, like, when we couldn't meet payroll, I was sweating, you're like, oh my God, what are we going to do? And you carry the whole team on your shoulder in those moments. And there's a lot there we could go into, but I want to transition into the AI piece, because let's go on to Kemu and what you're doing there. Cause I think that's really exciting, because what you said is like, it's not just chatbots, and I think those are fun, but
yeah. So the Kemu story was an interesting one, and to me, this is kind of a summary of, I could say, we came up with this really great idea. The truth is, this is pivot number 3, by the way.
Do that. Hold on. I was on Kemu's website. Can anyone sign up, or is it Australian only right now?
No, it's anybody anywhere in the world,
okay, cool.
And you can use the technology for free. And the idea is we just want to put it out there in people's hands, and ultimately we want the community to own the product and build the product as well.
Oh wow!
So it was sort of the next. Think of the next concept around, not just an open source style approach, but also, the velocity, and the way to think of it at the end game. There will be trillions of orchestrated agents.
Yes.
Running in our lives in a very short period of time. Trillions.
100%. I believe that. Yeah.
How do you create them? How do you manage them? And it's not just, it's now not just a conversation for the engineers. It's a conversation for everybody. The parallel I give is, 40 years ago when spreadsheets were coming in, and I'm like, oh my God, spreadsheets are incredible, right?
Yeah.
I'm actually that old, right? And I literally at one stage I had a gig, going around working with the CEOs of very large companies, teaching them spreadsheets so they didn't look bad in front of other people or CFOs.
Wow.
Well, roll forward to today, we've now got over 1 billion people using AI in less than 10 minutes.
Yep.
So I've come back to the velocity, the angle, and then the scale of what's actually happening. So the idea with Kemu was not that we wanted to replace everything or have a better thing. We looked at it and said, ultimately, the world will be agentic. You will be able to create simple applications and agents and orchestrate them just to do basic daily things as well. If I wanted to create a little thing, and I use the example when I used to manage kids' sports with my son in ice hockey and lacrosse or soccer as a kid. I've got to do this list and do this thing and do that. Well, wouldn't it be wonderful if I had 2 or 3 little agents that I could just grab and put that together and get it done in about, 5 minutes?
Be incredible.
So everything from there all the way up to, the worker and, agents at the edge, that's the world we're moving into. So we said we wanted to just have some very simple tooling to enable that could be as simple as someone who wants to do something in 2 minutes, and as complex as helping 500 engineers who need a repository and versioning and doing something very simply, but interacting with Cursor or their command line.
Wow.
So we set ourselves a challenge, and the vision part of this was, we said, I've had the benefit of going through so many different technology cycles, and I'm a big believer in the second and third wave of the tech cycle.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is, for example, when customer relationship management came through, guess what? The biggest problem was data cleansing and data connection, because you could never get the data correct, and single source and all those sorts of things.
Makes sense.
All sorts of platforms were then built. So it's it's literally the picks and shovel strategy selling to the gold miners, right?
Mhm.
So, okay, we don't, in today's it's Anthropic, it's it's Gemini, it's OpenAI, who are
Yeah.
but there's a whole bunch of other tooling, infrastructure, explainability, all sorts of other things, security, MCP servers, all sorts of things, the infrastructure and everything around that. And ultimately that will also get rolled into their stacks as well. But we looked at it and said, okay, the hardest thing is actually going to be simple on ramps, simple tooling, and we pivoted the technology into this platform. So to finish the story, we put that was myself and my business partner Alex, who's just fabulous, and we both had passion for giving back, and we wanted to create a STEM platform to, frankly, keep kids in school in STEM, and more importantly, women
Wow.
in girls in STEM, because they were sort of
That's a,
they it was a bit of a stigma, and we said, well, they shouldn't have to pick up, things like printed circuit boards and wires and put things together, because then they're in the nerd category. Versus
right.
we built a beautiful platform that showed very easily they could do simple robotics and simple compute tasks, and we actually won all sorts of design awards, and it was a prior company called Kitsune, KITSUNEI, which is
Okay.
the mythical nine-tailed fox who can do incredible things.
Yeah.
Right?
Shows.
So
Familiar.
the real story around Kemu was, we literally, when COVID came around, we couldn't get any chips anywhere in the world, so our supply side dried up, and then we couldn't do demos out in schools because kids weren't at school physically. So our demand
Yeah.
side and our supply side dried up immediately. And for those of you who've had a startup before, when you have at least one of those two sides, you've got a problem. When
You
both
feel
happen at once, you're done. You're absolutely done. So we looked at it and said, okay, let's just back it down, start it again. And then our epiphany at the time was said, okay, let's do this again, but make it a software only platform, not software and hardware, because we literally had these really cute little, think of like pieces of chocolate type hardware, like an accelerometer and similar, with magnets on the feet.
Okay.
And you could assemble these things and create the equivalent of a compute stack without actually knowing how it happened.
Oh,
So
wow.
like sensors and readers. It was very, very fun. But we said, never again hardware, software only. And we started to build software only. And then most of the prototypes we were building back 4 or 5 years ago were actually on the emerging stuff that was coming through, like TensorFlow, and it was probably we could we're like, oh, we could do TensorFlow in the browser and do AI in the browser and teach a kid how to use this with a self-driving car. And then we're like, oh, hang on, we've
Wow.
actually built a platform now that you could actually help do orchestration around AI, because we were seeing AI wasn't coming through as quickly. It's really come through very, very quickly in the past 1 or 2 years. Now,
Yeah.
I always go out of my way to say it's kind of comical, because AI has been around for about 40 or 50 years.
Yep.
Just not at the scale with the technology and
A lot of
with the
people don't
level of
realize that at all.
compute. No, they don't.
Yeah.
They don't. So that was basically the story of Kemu. And then we said, let's not rush it into the market. And we said, we've waited this long. Let's build the platform and wait for the market to evolve and get it to the point. So we're now taking it out to the market now. We think it's ready, and it's it's a self-documenting platform. We plug anything to anything. We're entirely agnostic. We have hundreds and hundreds of models plugged in, and our thesis is there'll be hundreds, if not thousands more. And it's going to continue to change at a rate of change. So the only constant for us is going to be your ease in doing workflow and orchestration,
Yeah.
independent of how the landscape moves around you.
And this is where I love that you're building in public, because I follow you on LinkedIn. And so if you're listening, I encourage you to follow Andrew on LinkedIn. But the demos you're putting out for Kemu is incredible. Like, it's, you'll see, for people who haven't seen it, it's basically, I don't know, like they're little tiles that do little jobs, and you can connect them and have like there's a trigger, I believe. There's probably a starting trigger point. And then there's a whole throughput, like a mosaic of throughput that goes through the whole thing, and you can run little nodes to get the outputs.
So we also
in a rudimentary way.
No, you hit it on the head. We inherited, we pull forward the idea that we didn't want to overcomplicate everything. So it's the idea of you just get widgets to connect with each
Yeah.
other. Now, the technologists in the room who are listening to this and cringing and saying, okay, it's just a workflow and orchestration platform. And we're saying, yeah, it is, but we can embed code. We can actually flip between there and the command line or your tool of choice like a cursor. And we can work on all of these variants very, very quickly, very visually, self-documenting, and we can add your own code and code snippets in there as well.
That's amazing. So getting back into what you just said, the orchestration play you're moving code throughout it, but you've made it so easy for everybody to use. And that's what I love about it. And it seems to me like anybody can jump into Kemu, use the platform, and you're just limited by the creativity you bring to it, strategy that
it's both the blessing and the curse of the platform is that it is relatively easy to use. And we were building a platform for the duality of the complex engineer that just wanted to prototype an idea and connect up, the AI, the AI technology, if I could say it that way, the LLMs, the data models, then what you do with that as part of the workflow in the process. But one of the things we were, for the more technical, we wanted to make sure we could inject code into that as well, not just connect and workflow of tasks. That's one thing that we did. The other thing we wanted to do was make sure that we were actually, building a platform that could actually self-document or could do the things that drove me nuts over the years, which is the only API I ever needed was the one I didn't have. Always, or the integration I needed. And we can right click on the platform and go out and find the docs of anybody's app, and we can literally create an API on the fly. Oh. And what we were trying to do is not necessarily just to be a code generation platform, but think of the versioning, the debugging, the fact that this is going to happen at scale. We did a company about 20 something years ago when web services came through. Where people were just saying, well, where are they? And how many of them are they? And how do you manage them? How do you govern them? And that was a company we built and sold to a company called SisterNet. We sold that to Mercury Interactive. And then Hewlett-Packard acquired that as well. Wow. But that was just around a simple problem of web services were proliferating. So roll forward to today, it's nowhere near the scale. This is massive number of orders of magnitude in terms of the agents that are proliferating and what you've got to do and create. And the old magic in technology is reuse. If I've built something once, I want to be able to use it again. So we basically create widgets or snippets, and you just drag it to the desktop and say, yep. And if you want to double click on it, you can see all the code behind it as well. Wow. And you can export that code out to GitHub. It's just put it into your normal repository. So we wanted to live in this mode. Incredible. And you'll know in what stuff I do, Justin, is like everyone tells you, oh, you shouldn't do that. There's no value in that. I'm like, yeah, well, except for everybody that sees value in that. Or, there's an opportunity over here. It turns out, the world is broken up into segments and audiences, and we're not as homogenous as we all think we are.
Oh, 100%. I say that to all our brand strategy clients. It's if you're not offending like half the market, you're doing something wrong. Because you don't want to be everything to everybody. And I think there's so much value in that. And a lot of people fear that because it's a lack of confidence or something. You need to be opinionated and have a unique position to say, this is who we're going after and who we're serving uniquely.
Yeah. We sort of summarized it into say, but like people say, well, you're kind of a no code platform. I'm like, nope, no code, command line integration. And we don't make you download any other technology, so you don't need to download a container, download a database, set up an environment on your desktop. Just use the desktop, generate the code, push it over to GitHub.
Awesome.
Like all of the above. We're building an all of the above platform. If you don't like it, don't use it. There's plenty of other tools.
It's great. And this is very particularly exciting to me because most people, I think, are using AI with chat. They're using it on probably through the browser or their phone. They've downloaded it and they're talking to ChatGPT. I have some neighbors who are just asking me about ChatGPT. So I still think it's very early, even though I agree with the scale you're talking about.
So we're maybe 1 or 2% penetrated worldwide.
Yeah.
We're at the very start of this journey. And, as I sort of give the spreadsheet analogy, but, everyone's excited about the first time they wrote a formula to add up some numbers at the moment is kind of the
Oh, really?
analogy.
That early, you think?
Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, some of the AI that is being created, I'm working on some projects at the university where, for example, we're looking at, traffic data sets to be able to
If you can solve traffic.
direct and redirect traffic and actually do traffic studies using AI and data simulations. And things that would take 6 to 8 weeks to figure out how you're going to reroute the traffic around a sporting venue around a particular event. You can do that. You can do that in minutes now. So
that's great. I mean, most software.
Scale.
Yeah.
Yeah. Scale of what's about to happen is incredible. That's what I'm most excited for.
That's very exciting. I want to see, like, where do you think things end up in 12 months from now? Like, what is the vision for Kemu?
Well, for Kemu, the vision is our hope rather than a vision is that the community will embrace it and it will just become a community level productivity capability for workflow and orchestration.
Okay.
Is what we hope it to be. We didn't build a piece of software because we wanted to be the next unicorn. In fact, I banned that from most of the companies that we talk about in the early stages. If the first thing we want to be is a unicorn, then we actually absolutely don't understand the market.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
We've got to figure out what is the market and the opportunity, and don't confuse that with a venture scale or a civilization scale opportunity. That's interesting, but what basic problem are we solving, and who are we solving it for? That's a starting point.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And keep focus on that. It's really important. Okay, so wow, there's so much there. So a lot to unpack. And then I'm going to skip around a little bit. And then we talked about Austral Impact already a little bit. Then you saw that gap between when you came back to Australia, seeing that you wanted to really help the Australian startup ecosystem and tell those stories. And then that funnels kind of into Big Bets and Bad Calls, which is your own podcast. New episode just came out today, which congratulations.
No, thank you. And it was, and I think Big Bets and Bad Calls was, it was a very intentional and deliberate name for the podcast because, I really want to emphasize, celebrate the entrepreneurs, the big ideas, but also, create some humanity around what the journey actually is. And, there's as much disappointment as there is, upside. In fact, more often than not, it's, resilience wins. So getting that part of the story out, I think, is just as important. So other entrepreneurs and founders and aspiring entrepreneurs can say, oh, okay. It's not just the headlines. It's not just the media headlines and sound bites that, I'll just, and the example is, we see a lot over in this part of the world is that, oh, I've got an idea, I'll do this, and then I'll go to the US. I'm like, let me unpack that. And then I go to the US because.
Because the market is bigger or?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah,
pretty much. And it's, the analogy I give over here in Australia is, if you're a basketballer, you want to play in the NBA.
Yeah.
And it's the same. But I think just telling the story from the success, the opportunity, but then symmetrically also, the setbacks, the pivots, the what worked, the disappointments.
That's so important.
It truly is. And I think that's creating that conversation makes it, frankly, more organic and more real.
Yeah. It's so important because the media will have you believe that, hey, there's like overnight successes, which I don't think exist. And everyone can be a, massive unicorn. And if you're not worth anything and all these things, it's very glamorized. And I think maybe the pendulum is shifting a little bit I think, Facebook days, and I don't know if it's shifting, but.
Well, I think what's happening is the capital bases are getting larger, the experience bases are getting larger. And I think the elements, of any successful ecosystem is, the innovation, the idea, the capital, and the experience, and then the other one, which is really the connections and the network.
Mm-hmm.
So, really sort of, it's the pulling together all of those elements that actually gets you there, right? And that's what we're not only just talking to entrepreneurs on big bets and bad calls. We're actually talking to some of the key players in the ecosystems as well from their perspectives, because it's just as important to understand.
Okay.
Why does an investor only invest in this sort of stuff? Or my favorite one is, we now have entrepreneur psychologists like we have sports psychologists. So if you win Wimbledon, you're thanking your sports psychologist now, and that's an okay thing to say.
Yeah.
I think it's okay to say you've got an entrepreneur psychologist as well, because the mental or cognitive load associated with doing a startup, it's tough.
It is hard. And I think I've doubled down on health, because I consider right now I'm building a startup and a small business. I won't even say startup. It's self-funded, but I view it as a sport. I view it as a sport itself. And it's like, if I don't have my health, I don't have energy, and I can't do this. And it's kind of, I was at a talk where Travis Kalanick from Uber, he equated it to sport. And he was like, if you're good at sport, you just stay in the game. Because someone asked, why keep going after Uber? And he's like, I equate it to sports, and I'm not going to stop playing the game. It's a great game, and I love it.
No, and some of the best coaches ever in any of the sports were actually ex-players.
Yeah. So, in prepping for this call, I've looked at your whole, everything you've done. I've tried, kept coming back to an interesting observation. So you've got Foundation DB acquired by Apple, GSI Commerce acquired by eBay, Global Logic acquired by Apex, Targetable recently acquired by Chowly. I don't think it's luck. I think it's a pattern, but since we're called return on reputation, could that be your reputation? And when you look back at but just
so first of all, as I always say, I've had the Forrest Gump career walk through life. I basically I'll chase every opportunity, and the great majority of things don't work out, and I really want to emphasize that point.
I am glamorizing.
Well, no, you're not glamorizing. I think first of all, I think it is a little trite to say you got lucky. Yeah, I did work hard. My mother God bless her, she was incredible. She said, just work hard, take every opportunity, meet everybody you can, play nice. And for the most part, I played nice on all that. No, only kidding. But it was. It was, I think curiosity was the one that kind of got me there. But I didn't realize what reputation I had until people kept telling me what my reputation was. I'm like, oh, I didn't deliberately set out to do that. I just, believed that, you had to work hard, you had to be professional, you had to give everything 110%. I didn't mind losing. I didn't, as long as we took a shot, and be as human as you can along the way with everybody. And I think you actually build your reputation, your brand over time. I'm a little, back the other way, where people say, well, get someone involved to build your reputation and your brand. I think, you are who you are. I'm happiest when I'm just me and doing what I do and doing what I love. And if someone asks me to explain, what's your purpose, I can do that. That's very simple.
Yeah.
I want to help as many people as I possibly can between now and when I draw my last breath.
That's great.
That's all I'm about.
That's awesome.
And it's mostly because don't make the mistakes I did. Let me explain when I really blew stuff up, and don't do that.
That's great. That's great. And I agree with that. I mean, a reputation 100% it takes a long time. It's hard work to build a solid reputation, and it ironically can be squandered in a matter of a few wrong moves. But no, I believe it. And I want to talk about founder-led brands, because that's where I think you've invested in. I mean, I think you just said at the top of the show, 250 different startups that you've been involved in.
I've either worked with or been involved in or invested in, or exactly.
Advised, led,
And
so 2 questions. When you're, when you've seen what works and what doesn't at the founder level, when you talk about founder-led brands, really how much is it the founder and the founding team that you're evaluating versus the idea and the market size and everything like that?
Yeah, I trivialize this down into there's 2 types of folks. The folks who, bet the jockey over the horse. Or the folks that bet the horse over the jockey because I think the jockey's interchangeable. I'm absolutely in the former camp. One of my reputations is I'm the entrepreneur's entrepreneur. I will work with the entrepreneurs and figure out, if they've got passion and they've got the idea, imagine telling Jeff Bezos that, dude, you've never built a retail giant or an internet giant or a cloud giant ever before. You have no clue what you're doing. Jeff didn't know it. He didn't, maybe he had a vision of where Amazon was going to go, but it was basically a bookstore and then selling everything to everyone.
Yep.
Way back when. So the ability to sort of
is Jeff are you horse over jockey or jockey over horse? Sorry,
I'm jockey over horse.
Okay,
I'm jockey.
That's the entrepreneur.
Because Bezos had passion and a mission. He was going to go after it. Even just going after bookstores and taking bookstores online is a very simple concept in the early days, and then building from there.
Yeah,
he bet on that vision and went after it. Now, you could question what is the business, the underlying business model. So at the end of the day, there has to be something that's investable. It's got to be a good idea and fundamentally solid. But I will always bet an entrepreneur to figure it out.
But if now you're talking to an entrepreneur who has done it a few times, has an excellent reputation that you know of, how much easier is it for them to get the deal with you?
It's a lot easier. It's a lot easier because more often than not, they're also bringing along the team that's going to come on the journey with them. So it's really
it's a whole package.
Just the entrepreneur. It's the entrepreneur and the team and the idea, and you've learned what works and how to structure, and said differently, you're going to have less friction. You're going to have less, probably more efficient on capital. So it's actually. That's where you alter the probability, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I can say it that way. It still has the same risk, but you alter it's de-risked because of the team.
Putting the odds in your favor. Yeah.
Yeah, but equally, there's as many folks. There's an incredible 2 entrepreneurs I'm working with at the moment who are both research professors, and a lot of logic will tell you research professors shouldn't do startups. They should stay in labs and be researchers. And I'm like, no. I mean, one of the ones I work with at the moment, she literally quit her job and said, no, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm going to take this particular technology to market.
Wow.
And I would never bet against her. And she's done things that I never thought anybody could do. So, and that's what I mean about betting on the entrepreneur. And you do spot it. You can actually see the big difference between someone who's all in and is just going to find a way. Yeah, that's the ingredient you're looking for the most, in my mind.
Yeah, you can't fail if you don't quit.
That's it.
There's a debate, I think, within startup and founders as a whole in that community about whether personal brand actually drives business outcomes or whether it's a vanity play. Because a lot of people I've even heard like, oh my gosh, it's just about the founder's ego. He's got a podcast or whatever. Where do you stand on that? Do you think it's a valuable input for the business to get that media through the leverage of the founder?
So, yeah. So I would, this is a tricky.
Or would you rather see the founder just heads down, focus on the business and the team?
So I think that the curse of the founder and the curse of creating a market and building a market is you have to have someone who's the chief storyteller.
Yes,
someone who's going to actually get out there and create the position, create the opportunity. So I say more often than not, you're an unwilling, participant in that brand development process. And some of them do it very well. And this is where, humans have different styles and different execution. But I think in nearly all cases, you actually have to represent the brand and do the storytelling and get it out there.
Yeah.
Or someone on the founding team needs to do that because, said differently, being quiet in the cubicle or the office and hoping that the market comes to you is not a great strategy. Yeah. So I think it's less about being an iconic individual. Now, it's easy to be an iconic individual when you raise $30 billion. So because, if you've got more press attention than anything, But I think it's more someone who's got an idea and they want to put it out there. I'm working with a fabulous entrepreneur at the moment, Professor Leah Rupana, who's working on mental and cognitive load. And we've just put a company together called Lighten Lab to think about mental and cognitive load. And she's she's out there on the speaking tour. She's, doing lectures. I think she's I would call her a reluctant entrepreneur and developing a reluctant brand.
Yeah.
But she's the expert, and
Yeah.
ultimately
Yeah.
that's what the market wants to. The market wants to engage with that person with that expertise or point of view while you're developing the brand. So I think it's more of a necessary evil, rather than you have to have the iconic. You have to have the iconic, and oops. As I said, I don't have to wear the black T-shirt, but I was pretty close today. But you don't have, you have to do the whole vibe thing, if I could say.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's really interesting. I think I have my opinions. I want to hear yours. What is the number one rule of a founder? And then I think you want to build a team of people who have stronger, they have strengths where you have weaknesses. As you're building that team, what are the things you're looking for there?
I think, clarity and vision. And then, very open, collaborative leadership style as well, because there's no copybook. There's no copybook answer. The way I position it is that, it's great with steady state companies because they've got their operating system and they're up and running and they're working. As you're creating a company, there is no operating system yet. So you've got to create the operating system, you've got to create the leadership, you've got to create the culture. And then the other thing that I usually say is, the barometer of the company is actually the founder's face every morning. And when you walk in, okay, are we okay today?
Yeah.
Everything going good today? So it's very visceral and very raw, and it's in your face until you get through that initial period. So this is why people talk about there's different phases of leadership. And it is, creating something from a blank sheet of paper on a table and an idea, all the way through to now we've raised 20 million and we're up to 50 million in revenue. Very different scale and different phases of challenges and opportunities. But always you've got to be a leader with a very clear vision and clearly articulate to everybody what it is you're doing and why.
Yeah.
And being very humble and admitting what's not working and what we're going to do about it.
I think I always viewed it as listening more than you speak to the people around you, the people you brought on the team, because there's a reason you bring them on the team in a lot of ways.
Yeah, but it's, I'll go back to the math again. It's about 75% listening and 75% speaking. It's like you've got to listen and also.
Oh, for sure.
You're trying to get everybody to go on a journey with you as well. So you can't just sort of say, read the manual, get on with it, third desk on the left. It's like, no, what did we learn today? What are we doing tomorrow?
True.
Yep.
Very good point. I was going to ask you about, big bets, bad calls, and what's the biggest bet you've made and how you look at risk today. I'm not.
That actually, it's a great question.
Okay.
If I had to say one thing in my life, in my career, was the big bet was moving to the United States in the mid-90s. It was,
I imagine that.
Frankly scary. It was beneficial because Deloitte had acquired the company and Deloitte said, come on over. So that was about the softest, safest way to come over to the US. It wasn't, I packed up everything, shut everything down and turned out, so it was very safe. But the big bet was going to a new country, getting a new citizenship and embracing a new world.
Yeah, that's got to be scary. Do you view entrepreneurs as risky? Just because
I'd say it the other way around, which I don't know any entrepreneur who's not taking a risk.
Okay.
It is risk. And then the question is, where are you on your risk scale? And, are you, a 1 out of 10 or an 11 out of 10? I'm unashamedly a 12 out of 10. I'm always risk on. Always.
Well, I ask because there's I think there's perceived risk in that entrepreneurship is a very risky thing, but a lot of entrepreneurs, like I would argue, like Richard Branson, right? There's a story of how you're always kind of mitigate those risks and protect the downside. So I think his famous Virgin Airlines story is he was able to give the plane back if it didn't work out, that first plane.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, look, first of all, we manage and mitigate risk relative to our capital and our opportunity, rather than we're not brighter than the average bear.
Yeah,
but we're scrappy hustlers, so we've got to figure out what we got based on what we have available to us.
That's great. I really appreciate your time. We could probably talk for another couple hours. Andrew, thank you so much. It's been a true pleasure. Honestly, I could talk to you for a few hours, so Maybe we'll do it again. Thanks, Andrew.